Welcome, everyone, to Dial the Gate, the Stargate Oral History Project. My name is David Reed. I appreciate you being with me here for this episode. I am thrilled to welcome back Dion Johnstone, who has played numerous roles over the course of the SG-1 television series. Dion, it's a treat to have you back, sir. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to come back and continue to unpack and reminisce these amazing
Absolutely.
experiences that I had on the show.
It's just there are so many, and there was just no way for us to cover all of them in that first episode. So, before we get into them, though, I do want to ask: Are there any updates to Sweet Magnolia since we last spoke earlier this year? Anything going on there
Well,
that we need to be made aware of?
season five launched on Netflix on June 11th,
Okay.
and it did fairly well. It went to number four on Netflix worldwide. Um, and it sat at the top 10 list for about 3 weeks.
Okay.
And the feedback has been wonderful. It's great running into people who've seen the season and express their love for it. I felt great doing it. It's just great to have it out there for people to see. We
Yeah.
at the moment we're waiting to see what Netflix decides to do, whether or not we'll be renewed or not. And as always, I sit in this place of feeling like it could be the end. Um, and if so, I'm grateful for everything I've been able to do on the show. I'm also hopeful. We have lots more stories to share, and if that's the opportunity we get, we'll be back at it for another.
Absolutely. When the show um has moved forward in the past, how is it 12 months turnaround time per season typically in your experience? Is it 14, 15, 16 from one to the next to the next? So
Yeah,
where would you typically fall?
it's usually roughly about a year
About a year.
after wrapping the
Okay.
time that it takes for the show to both be produced and to air and to be greenlit and then be back producing. This season was a little bit different in the sense that they delayed the release of it. So we had quite a late release, a summer release. And in the past, by this point, the writers' room was already working on
Okay.
the next season. So this year we don't know what's happening. Um, you never really know whether it's trying, for a different slot to see how audiences
Mm,
react to that. Um,
for sure.
yeah, we don't know. Yeah,
So I guess you're dealing with what everyone in the Stargate community recently dealt with, except the other way around. It's like there's a chance, always that, especially because you have so many books that you guys can to unpack from,
can draw
if I'm not
from.
mistaken.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So
Hmm. Yeah.
it's exciting one way or the other.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I definitely feel for my character, Eric Whitley. Season five was a phenomenal season for unpacking who he is and where he comes from and why he is the way that he is. And it left with a quite a satisfying resolution. So if we're not to continue, I do feel it's a nice end chapter. But at the same time, it's built in such a way that it's a platform to springboard onto the next stage of his evolution and his evolution and the relationship with Helen. So I hope we're given the opportunity.
How
But
faithful
we just have
is,
to wait and see.
and that's just it, that one way or the other, you're just gonna have to wait and find out. How faithful is the series to the source material,
I haven't
to
read
Whitley in
all of the
particular?
source
Okay.
material, and we're very loosely based. Our
Okay.
first season followed pretty much in line with the first three books, and then from
Oh.
there it sort of has branched off and become its own entity. So it draws spiritually from the source material, but it has become its own entity by this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anywhere else we need to be keeping an eye out for you?
Yeah, I just came back from a couple of months filming a feature film in Singapore, which is called Kungfuland, and it's my first time doing a martial arts comedy, and it's an irreverent, funny, but also heartfelt story. It's the first ever co-scripted production between Singapore and Canada, so that's quite a big event for both
Wow.
countries. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, there's obviously I can say that at this point it did give me the opportunity to learn skills that I never thought that I'm gonna film in this lifetime. So I'm pretty proud of that and excited for people to finally see it.
Very cool. Do you have an idea of when we can expect to see that?
I believe it'll probably be about a year
Okay.
before it's turned around. They're very hopeful to have a premiere of both at there's a festival that happens in Singapore once a year, and also at the TIFF festival here in Toronto, which would be next fall. Um, I think in about a year's time they'll be releasing it.
Okay. Very good. Well,
Yeah,
we'll keep our eyes open for it.
yeah.
The last three characters that I wanted to focus on with you that we didn't really get to touch on last time were characters in seasons 5 and 6. And in the later years of the show, it must have really felt like old leather getting back to that set and those people. I'm assuming. Were things in any way more comfortable in the later years, or did it feel different every time?
I think it felt different every time. And when I look back on it, one of the things that I recognize is I was always being encouraged to enjoy my space more, to trust that I had arrived as a valued member of this show and of this company, and and to just enjoy that a
Mm.
bit more. I was always very concerned about getting it right, you know.
Sure. Yeah.
And because each challenge was new, and quite often some of my most significant challenges came under the directorship of Peter DeLuise. Like when I look back, some of the really interesting characters that really pushed me to the limit of what I thought I could do at that time were under his tutelage, and he was sort of
Mm.
giving me an education in filmography, and and so I always felt there was a bar that I was striving to reach towards, and I took that very seriously. And years later, I would be able to sort of look back and consolidate a lot of what I had learned and maybe didn't understand immediately at that time. And the biggest lesson, I would say over the last couple of years, and I would say even through Sweet Magnolias, has been a process of going, okay, you can let go. You can trust that you're doing the work. You can trust that you arrive and you deliver what needs to be delivered. But now let yourself enjoy it a little more because this is also so fleeting.
Yeah.
You never know if it's going to be your last, and you don't want to be waiting until the end to finally enjoy it and have it be gone, you know? So,
I think it's one of
yeah.
those things that we can all really take to heart and apply in a number of circumstances in our lives. When we've been selected for a part to play, whether it's a cashier, whether it's an actor, whether it's whatever it is that you might be doing, trust that that someone has picked you for this part to play in a process, and not only do the best you can at it, but don't get lost in that process. Like you say,
Hmm.
you're in for this moment in time, and don't turn inward and get lost, and
Hmm.
just take on the role that you are meant to play, that you have to be involved with other people, and do it the best that you can, and accept the fact that you have something to give that someone else has
Hmm.
seen that you can give. So don't
Yes.
get caught up in it.
Yes. Yeah.
It's there. It will find itself. Let it find its way out.
Yeah.
That was a very poor way of articulating that, but I
No, I think that's a very
I
good way.
tried.
And sometimes that effort, it comes out of the best intentions,
Mm,
but it can get in the way of what it is
hmm
that you're trying to do. And often what you're trying to achieve can happen so much easier if you relax and trust more and just kind of get out of the way of the natural process happening. Yes, you put in the work, but there's overworking something as well
Yeah,
too. And there's trying to have too much control over it rather than trusting what comes out of inspiration, which you can't control and you don't know what you're going to do.
that's right.
So so it's having confidence as well in the not knowing as it is in the precision of what you may be trying to do. So it's a balance.
Yeah, I'm reminded of what Stephen King said in on writing his memoir. Uh, there's always another word. English is big enough that you can mine and mine and mine. There's always another word that you can use when you're trying to construct a sentence. But is it really going to be better than your first instinct? Just
Right.
relax.
Right. Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
that word came to you, you shouldn't always, but generally speaking, you can trust that that word came to you for a reason. That choice that you're making as a creative person, that first impulse uh, can often be um, the best one, or you can just
Mhm.
keep on digging. But will it really get you that much more mileage at the end of the day, or are you just consuming resources in your
Yeah.
brain, in your spirit?
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. So true.
I've
It's,
got a number of thoughts on this first character that I'd like to discuss with you. Season five,
mm.
you appeared as well, this is the second time that we got to see your face, but it
Mm.
was actually a facade for another being who was Rainmaker Digital did not create a lot of creatures that at this point in time. They were much more known for their environments, and they stuck their neck out for the real and created something that was very, very different and only seen on screen for a
Yeah.
couple of shots.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Remarkable looking creature. But
Yeah.
we knew him as Lt.Tyler from Texas.
Right. Right.
Tell me about this character and uh, really being out in the thick of it for 3 or 4 days for this
Mm.
shoot. Also a DeLuise
Right.
episode. Tell me
That's right.
about the
Yeah.
fifth man.
Yeah. I mean, that was a lot of fun to shoot and a really interesting challenge because he's essentially their species are memory chameleons. It's how they defend and protect themselves. I mean, part of it is a chemical secretion that they can emit that will build memories in the people that they're with, and that allows them to blend into the environment. They're pacifist by nature, so they're non-aggressive and um, they don't seek out battle and they don't fight. So this is their way of defending themselves. And so the the fun challenge was playing. I'm a member of the team. I've been here since the beginning of the season. I'm like a new cast member of
Yeah,
this season,
for all
and
intents and
everybody knows who I
purposes.
am, and everybody see me. Now the audience is in on it, but the characters are not. And so it was more playing the gaps in his awareness, the gaps of where he's not able to cover are are where his identity is revealed. And that was a fun acting challenge to play coming from that standpoint. How to make it really subtle at first, because the whole thing is maintaining the blend, maintaining the facade until I can't do it anymore, until I need to reveal who I am. So
Exactly. Once he has no longer has a choice.
yeah, yeah. So that was a lot of fun to do. Working with Richard Dean Anderson
Oh
was fantastic. Just to see, he was executive producer on the show, and and so in between takes, not only is he concerned about what we're filming, he's already planning ahead to the episodes coming. So, I would watch him in between setups, looking at future scripts and circling lines and making notes and I asked him what he was doing and it's pretty blunt about it. He's like, I'm just making sure I don't have egg on my face. And
Right.
and when I kind of delved in more, I realized, okay, so he's really, not only a steward of the show and the integrity of the show, but a steward of his character and making sure that what comes down the pipes and what he eventually goes to perform is going to have the integrity of who Jack O'Neill is and how he speaks and how he relates. And and that was fascinating to me. I had come from a theater background at that point where the script is the script. The script is the Bible and it's inalterable. And so your work as an actor is trying to find how in the world do I arrive at saying these precise words. And if I'm off by a word, the stage manager is going to let me know and give me a correction, and I'm going to have to shift it back. But in this context, I learned the lesson of it doesn't always work that way, especially in film and TV. Like you do your best because the writers have poured hours into each
Hmm.
script, trying to make that story make sense. But there will be times where it just doesn't work. There may be too many words, or maybe they're hitting on something, but and you can feel it, but it's not quite the right composition. And if you don't say anything about it, then you arrive on the day and you film it, and just by hoping that nobody notices, people will notice. People will notice when something is off. And so the lesson I've taken from working with him on that, and all the way even now, right through Sweet Magnolias, is I'll get the script and I'll do my best to honor what's written. And even if it's awkward, I'll go up to the showrunner and say, is it written awkwardly because this is a moment where the
On
character is in
purpose.
flux and yeah, and can't find what to say, and that's what it's meant to be. And if it's not that case, then in my back pocket I have a couple of suggestions. I mean, I could say that same thought,
Yeah.
but if we alter the words just like this, or if we added that word or subtracted that word or flipped the order of this, it would just flow a little bit more naturally, and I could just get to the thought. And I try to do that before we arrive on set, so there's lots of time to fix it or make whatever changes or help me come to an understanding that maybe I didn't know and and so that by the time we're filming, I can commit to what we're doing. And that was a big lesson that I got during that period of time was what I would say what your department is as the actor, your responsibility to steward the role and to protect the integrity of it. And that was really cool. It was really cool.
Brad Wright told me once, and the broader discussion had been about Rick, but his just ability to riff, um, because he was not only was he the executive producer, he got scripts early. He could see, like you
Mhm.
had indicated, he could see the track that they were laying down ahead. Brad once said to me, if you're changing the dialogue just to change it, that pisses me off. If you're changing it to make it better, great. Um, but that's kind
Mhm.
of I, it's kind of disarming to watch an actor, go off track in another direction sometimes. Did he ever do that? Did he ever riff on the script for The Fifth Man?
Not to my memory of
Okay.
it, and certainly nothing that I would remember where I felt like, oh, now we're in improv land. Um, I pretty much remember, like by the time we were filming, the dialogue that we had was what we were filming,
Mm,
except for maybe I could imagine like slight alterations or slight variations, but not like changing the lines or saying different dialogue.
okay.
Yeah.
This this character, I can imagine like he's not reading Jack's mind specifically so much as
Mhm.
presenting. Or do you think that there was a little bit of mind reading going on as well? Because
I
I'm
don't
not
think it's
entirely sure
mind
where that.
reading
Yeah, I think he's
as
taking
uh,
on. He's aware of like what he's appearing as. In some
yeah.
regard, he has to be. And then
Yeah.
he's using
Yeah.
the elements around him to fill in the details. Like, well, this MRE was made in. I think it was the MREs. It was made in Tyler,
Tyler,
Texas, and so
Texas.
that's
Exactly.
yeah.
We're
He
just
he knows
oh,
enough to
this
know
is
that
where he
that's
got Tyler
there.
from.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's a highly I mean, without knowing exactly how the species
Hmm.
was designed, my instinct is that it's a slight combination, but it's ultra heightened senses. So there is some sort of awareness of the shared vision that's being projected to
Hmm.
all people. Because even back on Earth, when Dr. Fraser
Carol,
has the Flash. Yeah, she has the same image that everyone else has been having.
that's right.
So I think he's also able to glean from how people speak, what the scenario is, what their structure is, what the world is, what they're seeing, how they perceive him. So I think it's just heightened senses. There may be some degree, maybe it is a developed sense of telepathy, but nothing. I would think that would be like mind reading, or else I think the
Yeah.
blend could be uh, more complete. There were a lot of things that sort of happened to him where he was completely clueless.
Oh, for
Things
sure.
that he didn't
Yeah.
even know that he was missing. That was sort of like, that's odd. You don't know how to catch a grenade, a radio. You don't know.
Well,
You
it's little things like that.
you're
Yeah,
you're
I
you're
think
missing
it's
that there's a joke.
well. I'll share one of my favorite moments, and it's just a delivery in a moment here. But I think it's just a being he's a being that's highly perceptive
Yeah.
and just weaves that with the ability the chemical itself. They
Hmm.
this is how his species responds to threats, and you I would imagine would develop your senses in line to carry out that ultimate goal, especially if you're um, not I'm not saying that they can't defend themselves, but this is they they just they probably leverage their technology in the same way to conceal like they already do. One like they do biologically. One of the my favorite beats is just a blip uh, before O'Neill leaves, uh, tells Tyler not to shoot him, and the delivery is, and rather than just being like joking, it's serious. I won't. And you get Rick's look on his face is like, that's odd. It's little things like that I was like, yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect. This guy's not from home.
Yeah.
Oh man. God,
Yeah.
there's so much going on in this character. He was one that I really would have wished that we would have seen again. But before we move on from him, anything else that you take away from that particular role?
Yeah, I remember had all of these sequences. It was so much fun because I'm at one moment captured by the Jaffa
Yeah.
warriors and taken into their camp, and I remember there was one shot where um, he makes a break for the gate, and I was told, okay, so we've got these explosions lined up. So
Oh
you're
boy.
gonna and you've got to run this specific path, and it's sort of like a one-shot deal. So here's the path that you're running. You're completely safe, but it's gonna look amazing. But you only have one take, you know. And just the thrill and the excitement of doing stuff like that. This was the first episode, I think the only episode, where I got to walk through the gate, and just that iconic leaving
Mm,
through the gate experience. I was like, wow, if I never do this again, I got to walk through the gate, and in such a cool fashion. Yeah, it was a great period of life for me, of learning lessons, of learning what it took to be a guest star on a production of this kind of magnitude, but also what it took to lead a show like this, because I was very much watching the lead cast. This was like fifth season now.
mhm.
And just sort of taking in lessons of how I wanted to be when I eventually, had a show that I was the lead on. And so these are all foundational stuff. We shot at one point, and it was pouring rain, and which is normal in Vancouver. And Vancouver has a way of when you're watching productions that have been filmed, you kind of don't realize that it's raining, but if you're there filming it, it's pouring rain. You're like soaked. And and it was a sequence where I was being chased by the Jaffa, and we're in between setups. and I'm sitting underneath the tent and it's just pouring. And Peter looks at me and he's like, "What are you doing? Just like what? Go to your trailer." And and I remember looking out at everybody and I'm like, "Well, the background is sitting out here. The stunt team is sitting out here. The entire crew is sitting out here. Like
They're
everybody's
in the
here soaking in
elements.
the rain. Yeah, why am I gonna go back and hightail it to my trailer, you know? And it wasn't out of any sense of trying to be like heroic or anything like that,
You're
but
sharing the
but it did
burden.
feel like exactly. And so here I am. Another thing was I didn't have to fake the cold and didn't have to fake the rain and fake the sense of being pursued by these people. All those elements I was able to take in and incorporate and allow it to be more real. But also just the feeling of setting the tone, you know. Um, and and I've always felt that's important through a career like this. Yes, there's times where you have to conserve your energy and you've got multiple stuff that you're doing. And so you go to your trailer and you're working on your script, or you're getting your rest. Or but if if you have that opportunity to be there with everyone in the muck, so to speak, do that. Because I think that goes a long way for everybody to feel like, okay, we're all part of something here. There isn't some kind of division, you know? So that was another thing that came up during that shoot that was important to me.
Yeah, the weather especially in Vancouver, can be a really double-edged sword. You look at a lot of episodes of Stargate, particularly um, the other one that I was thinking of just a moment ago, which was Chaka, the sequel episode of Beast of Burden. You
Mm,
opposite Michael Shanks. Um,
mm,
if I recall correctly, there's rain in Michael's shot and there isn't in yours, and it's like but you have to be really looking
mhm.
for it. The cinematographers are so good at disguising it, and then it's up to
Uh-huh,
the
uh-huh.
sound guys. It's like, are we going to acknowledge the rain in this scene? In that instance, they
Right.
did, but you make it work, and you get your day,
Uh-huh.
and you go home, and you know what? You looked badass. God, I love that character. Oh
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
Um, is there anything we've mentioned DeLuise? Uh,
Mm,
is there anything specific that he taught you? Because he's an actor as well as a director, so he really
hmm
is an actor's director in that regard, as true as
hmm
that can
hmm
be. Anything that he's taught you that you carry with you, or anything that you remember of him?
Oh, there's a lot. Um, one of the big lessons that he was trying to impart to me at
Hmm.
that time, and it was very hard for me to hear, um, was you're carving out a niche for yourself within this company that few other people are doing. There's Alex Zahara, um, there's
Yes.
yourself, and there's maybe a small handful of other people, and there are a small handful of people in this industry who can do it. Playing these creature roles and and being able to bring such life to them and grab that opportunity. Don't be afraid of that opportunity. I was worried that what was going to happen was I was going to get known as the Stargate alien guy, and those were the only roles that I was going to get, and there wouldn't be an opportunity for my face to be seen
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
And I was worried that by extension that might limit me in the rest of my career. And he kept encouraging me, just don't think about that. Like this is your way in. This is what you're being asked for right now. Take it, embrace it. You know, go full in it. Because then from there, you build a reputation. People know you for the quality of the work that you bring. Then you can branch out and do other things. But you already have establishment within the industry. You've already built yourself a name. He was reminding me of Andy Serkis. He's like, look at him. Look at what he did with
Oh
Gollum.
God.
And
Yeah.
now he's directing,
Huh.
and now he can play virtually any role that he wants to play, and he has the craft to back that up, the skill to do it. So take that opportunity. And
Yeah.
I remember that was really hard because, there were long hours. You're there at the crack of dawn. You're there to the end of the night. You're under conditions where you've got scleral lenses on that are uncomfortable. You're managing your body heat. There's there's so much internal work that's involved in pulling off a role like that. And you can feel like yeah, but nobody knows that it was me. Nobody knows that I did it. So at the end of the day, that's a credit that doesn't mean anything. And he's like, you're looking at it the wrong way, and that's not true. And
That's
I've come
right.
to learn that people do know me for the work that I did on Stargate. Like in hindsight, I go, I see what you were saying, and um, I wish at the time I had more faith and more understanding to really grab onto it. Um, but I still hold on to that. And and it was also very much each character he would send me on a different hunt, in terms of I want you to look at this film, I want you to think of this book or this novel or so do some research to learn more about cinematography and more about film and more about these character types as your preparation for playing this role as inspiration. So um, yeah, it was great. It was great working with him. And he would never settle. So if I wasn't achieving it, he'd keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing till it finally locked and he'd be like, okay, now we're in the pocket. There we go.
You just feel it, you know?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
something it's something you feel your way through. Man.
Hmm.
Metamorphosis.
Mm.
How familiar were you with the Elephant Man?
Vaguely. I knew of it. Um, but I hadn't seen at it
John
at that
Hurt.
point. Yeah, but that was again, Peter was a go watch The Elephant Man. Watch John Hurt's performance in that. Also look at The Hunchback and and just have a look at that as background as well too of Notre Dame. And and yeah, I mean what an amazing performance to show on under a mask that is almost immovable through
Oh my
lights and
God.
shadows and heart to show so much humanity. Um,
This is
Astonishing.
this is a special role when I look back and watch it. And underneath, all of that, it's a very interesting vocal choice as
Mm,
well.
hmm
Um, I I see Wodan. I'm not revolted by initially you're revolted by him, of course. That first instinct when you see it being like that, it's like, whoa, what's happened
hmm
here?
hmm
But like the guy's not evil. He does
hmm
threatening things. You could take your takeaway could be, yeah, this is a very dark character, but I pity this guy and his
hmm
circumstances. And I feel guilty because what's happened to him is because of our guys and the choice that they
hmm
made to honor a deal in exchange for saving a little girl's life. This
hmm
civilization has been irreparably harmed. And yeah, maybe it's undone in the end, but there's damage up here that can never be washed away. These are big
hmm
sci-fi ideas.
hmm
Um, who was this guy?
Yeah. That was another hunt to find Wodan.
Hmm.
Um, to figure out the prosthetics, um, to figure out how he moved,
Mm-hmm.
how he spoke. Um, I was working with big, beautiful but clunky, awkward teeth that changed the embouchure of my mouth. And that was one of the challenges where Peter kept saying, "No, that's not the voice. That's not the voice. It's not the
Oh,
voice."
so he worked
You
together to
know,
find it. Okay.
yeah, yeah, and eventually it sort of settled where he was like, "There it is." He had me do a vocal reaction, which was so unnatural to myself, Um, and it's around the time when we first meet the team and they reveal that my brother's dead, and I don't believe it. And he wanted me to let out like almost like a high pitched like a kind of like a squawk or like a shriek, you know. Um, and and it just felt so weird. Like I felt I would process the grief in a more natural kind of human way. And he kept pushing. No, I want something like it's more like a squeal. Just go for it, just like a high pitched kind of squawk, you know. So I did it. And and in hindsight, when I watched it, I was like, wow, that's amazing because it completely disarms him. It completely opens this crack of vulnerability in him, as if his body has reacted before his mind could process and control it in any way. And and so that was a really cool bit of direction and an acting moment and a layer to him. I found that through the pain of moving his body with kind of each step that he took, one of the areas where he was free was in the use of his powers
Yep.
and the use of his telekinesis. And so what started to evolve was like a kind of grace with how he could make things move, how he could, you know, orchestrate lifting up the bars of the prison cell, how he could stop a bullet in midair, even how he attacks Nirti in the end and ends up choking her.
It's that which
That
is
there was
most
power
effortless
and
for him,
yes,
if
yes,
there is anything that
and
is.
exactly. And so in a twisted body that hunches and you can feel that there's pain with every step he takes. When he goes into that realm, there's power and grace,
Hmm.
and it was like this very cool juxtaposition. So much of that episode was about perception, you know, these people believing that that they have found their savior and are willing to defend with their lives her safety and then realizing that who they've given themselves to is worse than they could imagine and and I feel that's echoed in their bodies. Their bodies look twisted and deformed, and they look like you can't trust these are the evil creatures, you know. And yet I found that there was nobility in him. That you know I almost imagined in another life he could have been a butler or a steward of some kind. There was some element of grace that had been
Uh-huh.
stripped from him because of this process, but was still in him. Um,
Yeah,
so
this
so
is
those
this
were
is just what's left. It's interesting with this character. Um, how do I want to phrase this? The note from Peter, I think is very telling. We, generally speaking, having looked at ourselves in the mirror um, long enough, know how we come off to other people, not just by looking at ourselves, but also by judging how people react to us. And so we can do certain things with our face or with our voice or with how we move that will convey certain things. But like you said before, you were feeling on the day, this doesn't feel right. And so it's kind of interesting to recognize that when you are under so much prosthetic, uh,
mm,
you can feel certain things fall into place in a character and when you see it in the mirror, but also you
mm,
have to rely more on the outside opinions of others because they're looking in Video Village and seeing how it's really coming across on all the different monitors. And you've got Peter in front of you saying, okay, this is not something that you're normally used to wearing and appearing as. This sound plus this look, this works. And then you go back
yeah,
and you watch the footage later, and you're like, yeah, that was it. You
yeah,
can't always
yeah,
feel your way through it. Sometimes you really do have to rely on the people around you to go, okay, yes, I was unsure about that, but they were right.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So true, so true. It really is a combined. effort. And when you're working with prosthetics, especially, it's even more so that collaboration. You need. It's funny. I used to do mask work, which is I think why I took so well to playing aliens on Stargate, because part of my training was in working neutral mask
Hmm.
and then evolving it into to character mask. And we always did it in front of a mirror initially.
Yeah.
And it was because the mirror would give you the information that would help you understand what the character was, because you couldn't always feel it internally, because the mask itself tells you who the character is. So part of it was training ourselves to understand what the mask was showing us and how that would naturally evolve into the body before you would step away. And then the other thing was you never did it solo. You always had an outside observer. In this case, it was our instructor, and he would always tell us at what point it was time to take off the mask. And when he said take off the mask, no matter where you were, what you were going through, you had to take it off. And sometimes that was for our safety. If we went too far into something, and he was like, okay, we need to abort this now
You can
for
get sucked
psychological
in.
safety or whatever, yeah, to
Yeah.
take off the mask, to have an outside authority that could be a watch person over everybody. And then gradually, once you got that understanding, then we would remove the mirrors and just kind of do a day in the life of the characters and let them evolve naturally. And so that's essentially the process that was happening here as well too, is having Peter on the outside, seeing the mask, seeing how, it was being interpreted by the camera, and seeing what worked and what didn't work, and building it up to the place where it was like, okay, this is a three-dimensional character now. This is no longer a person in a rubber suit, you know.
Hmm.
Yeah.
When you're playing this role and the people who are directly responsible for what's happened to your people are in your clutches, do you, through the character, you
Mhm.
feel that SG-1 deserved to be punished for what they did?
Wow. Um,
He really could have relished mistreating them, and he doesn't.
mhm.
Maybe a
Yeah.
little bit, but not really. There is there is restraint there. He does use his telekinesis to bend them to his will, but
Mhm.
um, it's not excessive.
Right.
He's not
He's
torturing
missing
people
the
like
he's
for
missing the
nothing.
information, though I believe, of their pre-history with
Mm,
Nirti. From his point of view, Nirti is their savior,
mm,
and they are coming here to remove her. And because of Egar, who has telepathy, they're very aware that they want to destroy her. And to them, she is their life giver. And that's what causes him to turn on them. In
okay.
hindsight, afterwards, realizing that she was lying, and maybe I mean we don't find out in the episode that they have any knowledge that, oh, this all happened because they let her go, and then she went and subsequently did this. Although Agar could find that out
Okay.
through telepathy. I would think, because from Go, their entire action with Stargate has been, we're trying to help you, and we are risking our lives to help you. And in fact, one of our own has died in the process of trying to help you guys, trying to prevent what happened to your brother from happening to you.
More of you. Yeah.
That I think he would be forgiving of the mistake that they earlier made that led to this, because she is deceptive and she's deceived them,
It's
and
true.
and and because they went to such extent and were willing to die in the process to free them. I think that would carry a lot of weight.
Mm,
Um,
yeah, I like that
yeah,
perspective for sure.
yeah,
Cool character, man.
yeah,
This
yeah.
next one, um, this makeup job for Warrick,
Mm,
Forsaken. It's a beautiful makeup job. very
Hmm.
elegant. Um,
Hmm.
Shaka's is still my favorite, but this one is so specific and unique. Um, and this was another example of a character that you don't want to judge by their appearance, in terms of what they're capable of and who they are, but for very different reasons. I
Hmm.
loved this twist. And I also love that if someone had to pick it up and carry it without you, that Alex was the one who got the opportunity to carry the
Yes.
character on, even though it was
Yeah.
a fairly different interpretation in some respects. Uh, Tell me about Warwick and being stranded without his family on this planet where the bad guys look like us.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great twist.
That's
Um,
right.
and it's wild because, let's say in the fifth man, where from go, your audience knows that you don't belong. They're sort of in on it.
Hmm.
And so you can't play the knowledge that they already have. So you're playing from a different place. This one, you appear the enemy. And and I guess the acting trap is to want to appear the hero, is
Hmm.
to play heroically. Um, but I found essentially in the way the setup is just play your objective, which is survival, and play it hard. And and the way it's laid out will make you look like the villain. And the opportunity to reveal yourself, which really comes only sort of in the second half of the episode, um, was in his big monologue where he talks about who he is, um, how they crashed, how the prisoners got free, um, how they've been surviving and are being hunted, essentially. I found for me it was important to land that in a way that was both emotionally true, but without being sentimental in any way as well too, because that's sort of the heart of the guy, and that's his self, and that's his moment to make the audience go, "Oh, I completely misjudged this. It's the complete opposite. In fact, you get hints along the way." Um, from the prisoners that something about them is off. So the audience is kind of already keyed into it. But to just see the humanity of who this guy is, even though he's an alien species, but there are species who have coexisted very fruitfully with human beings for some time. And so he's another character who it's interesting that you mentioned a sense of elegance, because that's what I thought of him as. Is he's both a commander and a captain, a prison warden in a sense for this ship, but a gentleman. Um,
Hmm. He has a code.
and yeah, exactly. And you see that in how he's collected all of the dog tags of his officers who died in the pursuit and the conditions that they're living under. Um, in the photograph of his wife that Colonel O'Neill finds. Um, yeah, so I just wanted to really capture that sense. This is a good man. He's an open heart. He's a gentleman. Um, but he's been stuck under these conditions where he's just fighting to survive.
Hmm.
And now he's down to he's the last man standing,
Yeah,
essentially, right?
this
But by this
it,
point.
he's the only one left from his crew. It's when you
Yeah.
look back at the runtime, this is probably the one that you had the least, amount of screen time with. God, I enjoy Alex's performance in the next one, but I really wish you had a chance to come back and sink your teeth into that next round because um there's so much to this character. And yeah, it's all three roles are awesome, but this one there was something that I really think was untapped with that character that they could have gone more with it. We see
It's wild.
echoes
You,
of.
you, you feel like it's the opening act,
I
of something
do
that could
very
have
much
been
so.
more, could have been fully fleshed out
Hmm.
through another story.
Hmm.
Just like
which
Shaka, where you realize, oh wow, first ones was just the opening act of who this character would become, and it's exciting to see him evolve in Beast of Burden, and even though I didn't get to play him in the next one, to see where he goes to, and yeah, it would have been lovely to continue Warwick's
and with
journey.
this guy as well with Alex in Space Race, D
Hmm.
is it? Is there a frustration in all honesty, is there a frustration in seeing someone else take on a role that you started off with? Or is it one of those things that's just, hey, this is the business. I had to make a choice. My contract says I'm over here for this one, and they couldn't accommodate. Um, do you block it out of your mind, or is how do you view that?
Yeah, I'm trying to think back into how I felt at the time. I think
Two
I
parts, two
have
big
I've
parts.
yeah, I eventually saw Patrick's role as Shaka, and I really liked that episode. I think maybe last time we talked, I'd forgotten that I had seen it, but I did watch it and enjoyed it, even though it was very different um, from what I brought. But I
Hmm.
think sometimes a character, it's interesting to see different people in the roles because
It's true.
you have a sense memory of what the baseline of that character is, and they allow other characteristics to poke out and evolve that you wouldn't necessarily get. But it took me a long time before I watched that because I was more connected to Shaka, and I really did
Yeah.
want to play it, but circumstances just wouldn't let it happen, and so I avoided watching, and then eventually did. I have yet to see Alex in this role, and I love working with Alex. He's just such a phenomenal, wonderful actor. So I'm sure I would enjoy what he did with it, and it would be very different from because we have very different energies.
It's more
Um,
similar to your interpretation than Patrick's Shaka was to your Shaka. I will say that.
okay, uh-huh.
But they're all, we only, can do so much, especially when you're really hitting it and getting the work that you want to get. I assume, at a certain stage, it's just like, yep, you can't get them all. And again,
Yeah,
it's going back
yeah,
to that perspective of gratitude, being thankful for the shots that we are given.
yeah, yeah,
Mm,
true.
yeah.
I remember in order for me to be able to shoot Beast of Burden, it meant that Peter DeLuise couldn't direct the episode, which
Right.
was his episode to direct as well too. Because they really tried to negotiate a window where I could do it, and I was tied up in a theatrical performance at that time, and they couldn't release me. So they're like, well, then we're just gonna have to shoot it earlier, which means we're gonna have to adjust the schedule, which means Peter, you can't direct this. So I remember feeling, just, and he's like, no, no, that's not you. Don't worry about it. You're gonna be in good hands.
That's right.
But yeah, but that's the that's the trade-off. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, I understand it. I've experienced it. And on some level, you kind of have to let it go. You kind of have to go, okay, well then this is the way that it's got to be. Not much I can do about it.
You're going to make it work with what you have. Dion, uh, I cannot thank you enough for coming back on and letting us really conclude the conversation that we started earlier this year. This has meant the world to me to have you back and to explore these different roles. Stargate has been good. It's thrown a bone to many an actor over the years. God, they threw you a steak.
Yeah. Yes. Oh man.
Man,
Yeah. Yeah. I will always look back at this time in my life as foundational. It really set the template, gave me lessons that I still use today. Really helped carve the kind of actor I wanted to become and have continued to grow into. So I'm eternally grateful to this show.
well, we are so thankful to have you to share these stories, and we may not have a new Stargate series anytime anytime soon, but um, what a great series of roles to look back on, and truly all the best to you on this ongoing series, which will get a season six. It's just a question of when. I'm just putting that out there in the universe. There's some wood here,
Amen.
but it's such a treat to sit down with you again and share so much of your history with us. So thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure.
What a guy, Dion Johnstone, uh, Tyler, Chaka, Warrick. I can't keep them all straight. Wodan. Gosh, man. Yeah, one of my favorite actors from the whole show. My name is David Reed. You're watching the Stargate Oral History Project. If you enjoy Stargate and you like what you see in this episode, really do click that like button. It does make a difference with the show and will continue to help us grow as we move into the latter half of season 6 here. And if you have a Stargate friend in your sphere of friends that you think might enjoy this episode, share it with them and let them know that we're out here. And if you want to get notified about future episodes, click subscribe. And if you go give the bell icon a click, we'll notify you the moment a new video drops, and you'll get my notifications of any last minute guest changes, because a lot of our episodes are live. We do not. My team and I, we do not get through this alone. We get through this with a lot of help from patrons, Patreon members, and I am so thankful for each and every one of them out there. You guys are making this show continually possible for me to move forward with new people, especially since we lost the new series. It would be hard to continue Dial the Gate at this point without the help of my backers, and I'm just so eternally grateful to all of you. Eternally, I mean that may sound like hyperbole, but not very much. This has become a project that I can no longer just pull off with me and my team, and so it means the world to me to have your guys' support every month. Tremendous thanks to my producers, Anthony Rowling, Bryce. You guys make this show possible. I have so much support from my moderating team, Anthony, Kevin, Lockwatcher, Marcia, Raj, Jacob, Enigma, Stephen, Matt Eagle SG Wilson for his extraordinary sequences, along with Venture Pictures, Frederick Marcoux at Concepts Web, who keeps DialTheGate.com up and running. Just a whole team of people who help bring Dial the Gate to you week in and week out. I'm thankful so tremendously. My name is David Reed for Dial the Gate. I appreciate you tuning in, and I will see you on the other side.